Professor Koh, if there's one thing that people who want to lower their risk of cognitive decline dementia, what is the one thing that you recommend that they do?
Well, I recommend that they eat more vegetables and fruits in terms of quantity and also in variety. The graph on the left shows that the benefit of fruit appeared to decrease cognitive impairment only up to about 3 to 4 servings a day, and there was no further benefit seen with higher intake beyond this amount. However, the graph on the right showed that it was different for vegetables. For vegetables, the risk of cognitive impairment just kept declining, just kept decreasing with more and more vegetables. Seems to suggest that the more you ate, the lower the risk of cognitive impairment. So this suggests that as people ate more fruits or vegetables in the midlife, the risk of cognitive impairment in late life was reduced. And this was stronger for vegetables than for fruits. When we came to vegetables, we also found that perhaps there was also more benefit coming from specific types of vegetables, like the light green vegetables, which had more vitamins and folate, and also from the yellow vegetables, which included carrots and corn. Finally, we also saw benefit, reduced risk of cognitive impairment with the intake of mushrooms.
Welcome to the Habits Pharmacy, where we unlock the power of lifestyle habits as medicine. I am Dr. Chan, your host. In this episode, I invited Professor Koh Woon Puay to share the findings from a study that she and her team published recently, where they found that the amount and variety of fruits and vegetables in one's diet significantly affects one's cognitive function and dementia risk in late life. Watch a full video for the details of this study and how Prof Koh and her team came to this conclusion. Today we have with us Professor Koh Woon Puay, who is a professor of Healthy Longevity Translational Research Program at the Yong Lu Lin School of Medicine at National University of Singapore. She is also the principal investigator of the Singapore Chinese Health Study, a 60,000 plus strong cohort of middle-aged and elderly Chinese Singaporeans established for the long-term study of dietary and environmental determinants of chronic diseases common among Singaporeans. Professor Koh have also co-authored 400 over scientific papers on diet, lifestyle, and genes in relation to the risk of diseases such as diabetes, cardiovascular disease, cancer, and adverse aging outcomes. Welcome, Professor Koh. Today, I've invited Professor Koh to share with us the findings from a recently published study in the British Journal of Nutrition, which is the quantity and variety of fruits and vegetable intake in midlife and how that affects cognitive impairment in late life. Professor Koh, thank you for joining us today. Would you take us through the exciting, interesting findings of your study?
Thank you very much, Dr. Chan. What a delight to be here this morning to meet all of you online and to share some of the findings from one of our recent papers on how the fruits and vegetables that you eat or you don't eat may actually affect one of the outcomes in aging, which is the preservation of your cognition. Put very simply, today we're going to discuss a saying that we have heard since young: an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Today, we're going to examine whether an apple a day is really enough to keep the doctor away. As Dr. Chan has explained, the work that I'm presenting today has been published in an international peer-reviewed scientific journal, the British Journal of Nutrition, last year. And the title is about how the quantity and variety of fruit and vegetable intake in midlife can affect the development of cognitive impairment in late life. As the population ages, we see an increase in the prevalence of dementia and cognitive impairment. What is cognitive impairment? It is the decline of a person's cognition, the ability to think, to learn new things, process new information, remember new details, and to deal with matters in a logical manner. As we age, some of us may feel that our memory is fading, our ability to learn new things may be declining. There is a normal rate of decline, and there's an increased or hastened rate of decline. I'm sure all of you, myself included, hope that even as we age, we'll preserve that cognitive ability, the ability to live, to learn, to remember, and to enjoy life. Cognitive impairment is therefore a symptom that may progress in its severity in its most severe form to dementia. That is when cognitive decline affects our ability to live a normal, happy life. So cognitive decline, like dementia, are expected to increase as Singapore population ages. At the moment, there is still no effective cure to prevent dementia or to treat cognitive decline. Hence, the best way is to actually prevent the development of this hastened decline by living a healthier lifestyle or by eating a healthier diet starting in midlife. So, a lot has been known about this topic. It has been shown extensively in research that having a healthier diet, which has more fruits and vegetables, will decrease the incidence of dementia and reduce the speed of cognitive decline as we age. However, there are still many unanswered questions. These are examples of some questions that we hope to answer. We still don't know whether the effects of vegetables and fruits are independent. A lot of us who like to eat vegetables also like fruits. So if the fruits are going to protect me and reduce my risk of cognitive decline, is this independent of the vegetables I eat and vice versa? Second question is about the specific subtypes of fruits and vegetables. We have heard certain reports like the strawberries, the blueberries, the berries are good. We have also heard reports that perhaps vegetables, which comes in the forms of leaves, are better than the ones which comes as bitter gourd or beans. Is that true? We want to examine that. Finally, we want to know whether it matters the variety we eat, or as long as we eat a certain amount, it really doesn't matter whether we eat just a few types or eat a variety. So these are the questions that we hope to answer in this study. So we seek to answer this study using data from a very long-term study that has been going on in Singapore for close to 30 years. This study was started in the 1990s when about 63,000 Singapore Chinese living in public housing estates were recruited. They were all of average age of 53 when we recruited them. That time, we interviewed them using a questionnaire to ask about their lifestyle, including diet. We had about 55% women and 45% men at recruitment. During the last 2 to 3 decades, we have repeatedly gone back to surviving participants to find out more about how their lifestyles have changed and how their health has changed. So about some 20 years after they were first recruited in the 1990s, between 2014 to 2016, we successfully re-interviewed 17,000 participants. This time, their average age was 73. And at that time, we decided that in addition to interviews, we should examine them to see how healthy they were at their age. And so the things that we examined included cognitive function. So just imagine I'm talking to you today, you're in your middle age, and I'm asking you about your diet. 20 years later, I will look you up again. And this time, I'll find out how your cognition is, how your health is, and I'm going to see whether your state of health 20 years later is influenced by your diet today. And this is how we have done the study for 17,000 participants. So at recruitment in the 1990s, we used the questionnaire to find out what they ate, what was in their usual diet at that time. So this is a very long questionnaire, as you can imagine. But I'm sure if I were to repeat the study today, it will be much longer because diet has become a lot more complex. 20 years ago, it was not common to find Japanese food, Korean food, mala food in the food court or hawker center. Diet was really simpler. Even then, we had included 165 food dishes and items and beverages in the questionnaire, covering rice and noodles, meat items, vegetables and fruits, dairy products like milk and cheese, beverages, condiments, and preserved fruits. For each item, we asked them how frequently each person ate that food item. And it came in a choice of 8 frequency categories from I hardly eat it, not even once a month, to oh, I eat it 3 to 4 times a day. For example, rice. The food items also came in 3 portion sizes so that we could understand the quantity they ate every time. It could become in small, medium, and large. And to help us accurately measure that amount, we actually carried photographs and the actual plates, bowls, and cups so that participants could very accurately tell us how much they ate. So let's take a look at some of these pictures we had. So this was when we asked participants about the eating of broccoli. I'm sure a lot of you will say, I eat broccoli quite often. And we asked them each time they ate, was it a small portion, a medium portion, and a large portion? And we actually showed them the plate that we used for the photograph. And we know when they said it was a small portion, how many grams that represented. This was for kailan, a very popular vegetables that I'm sure a lot of you will say, yeah, one of my favorite. And this is again a photo that we use to measure the amount that they ate every time they ate kailan. So because of the way we have asked, we were able to go down to the grams of fruits and vegetable for each type of fruit and vegetable for each participant. And that included food that they ate alone or as a mixed dish. For fruits, we even included the amount that could have come from fruit juices. So we actually asked a total of 14 fruits and 25 vegetables. We could have included more. I'm sure if I show you the list, you might say, hey, you didn't ask about my favorite fruit, the lychee or the longan. So how we came up with these 14 fruits and 25 vegetables was that these were the top fruits and vegetables most commonly eaten from 400 people that we interviewed when we were designing the questionnaire. So these were definitely the most popular fruits and vegetables at that time. Are you curious whether durian made the list? No, durian didn't make the list because it was a very seasonal fruit and really not eaten common enough all year round to make it on the list. So these were definitely common fruits and vegetables. So yes, papaya made the list, banana made the list, but not durian. So we also further classified the fruits that we had by the way the fruits affected blood sugar when we ate them on their own. This is used commonly by doctors and scientists and described as the glycemic index of the fruits. So fruits which have low glycemic index are fruits which would not raise your blood sugar that quickly whenever you ate them. So we must all understand that all fruits tend to have a sweetness that came from the sugars in the fruits. And so when we ate fruits, we would be consuming sugar from the fruits. Some fruits have more sugar, or they have sugars that could easily enter the bloodstream and raise our blood sugar level. So the fruits which had lowest ability for that were fruits like apple, pear, apricot, peaches, oranges, and persimmon. Then we had the fruits which would raise our blood sugar quite quickly. And they included things like the banana, the pineapple, the melons, the watermelon. And then we had fruits in the middle range, which are the grapes, the papaya, the mango, and the tangerine. And very quickly, I'm sure some of you will say, the fruits with a high glycemic index, they are good for fruit juices. Precisely because they had a lot of juices and a lot of sugars that would, come out in the juices. And, you can see that the fruits in low glycemic index with the ones with a lot of fiber in them. Let's look at the vegetables. For the vegetables, we also classified them into a few categories. Now, these categories were not exclusive, which means some vegetables could belong to more than one category. So we first looked at the light green vegetables. This categorization is not made by ourselves, but is commonly used in the nutritional research and clinical fields. So light green vegetables usually have a lot of folate and vitamins in them. And these include, as you can see, some of your favorite vegetables here, the green peas, the French beans, the gourds, like the fu gua, the bitter gourds. And we also have some vegetables with light green leaves, like the cabbage head, the celery, cabbage. So some of the vegetables are shown here. We have a dark green vegetables. Dark green vegetables usually have higher iron and beta carotene, which accounts for the color. They are darker in color. They are mainly the leafy vegetables, the kai choy, the tai sim, the pok choy, the watercress, and some of these vegetables that we commonly do in stir fry for Chinese dishes. Then we have what we call the cruciferous vegetables. These vegetables belong to a species known as the cruciferous vegetables because of the shape when we cut them in the cross section. So not to worry about the scientific names. Let me go through some of the examples. There will be things like Chinese cabbage, Chinese green, the gai choy, the watercress that you commonly use in soup, the kailan that we just showed, broccoli, and cauliflower. In fact, Chinese are known to eat at least 3 times more cruciferous vegetables than the Western population. Then we have our yellow vegetables, the carrots and the corn. Tomatoes kind of stand alone in their own category. And then we have our Chinese favorite, the mushroom. So the mushrooms, here you can see we have the shiitake mushrooms, the common wood ear mushroom, the cloud ear mushrooms, the mushrooms that we steam with our fish, and also the mushrooms that we put even in our Chinese dessert soup. So this is what we looked at for the fruits and vegetables. So between 2014 and 2016, when we met the participants, 17,000 of them in their homes, when they were all in their mid-70s, we examined their cognitive function using a very standard questionnaire used by doctors to screen for dementia. This is a questionnaire or an instrument that had 30 questions covering things like orientation, attention, language ability, immediate recall, delayed recall, and construction. So imagine it as a 30-question test to test how good your cognition is. So every participant who did the test had a score. And using the score, we were able to divide people into those who passed the test with cognitive function intact and those who didn't make the passing mark, who failed the test, and these were defined by us to have cognitive impairment. And we took into account the educational influence on cognition, and the cutoff point was different by the level of education that they had received in the past. So finally, we have our fruits and vegetable information in the 1990s when they were about 53 years old. And we had their cognitive function measured by the instrument that we used 20 years later when the participants were in their 70s. And we are now ready to look at the relationship between these two pieces of information. Before we did that, we decided to see whether the people who ate more fruits and vegetables were really different from those who didn't eat so much fruits and vegetables. And true enough, there were differences. The participants who ate more fruits and vegetables were more likely to be younger, to be women, to have had higher education. And they also tended to eat more fish rather than meat like pork. And they also ate more nuts and dairy products. They were also less likely to smoke or drink. And because of these differences, and because many of these differences could influence health in aging, it was very important that when we did our analysis, we accounted for all the factors that we see here to be sure that what we see is related to the fruits and vegetables and not to these other differences between the participants. So when we do the examination, we put all the people into 4 groups according to the amount and the variety of fruits and vegetables that they ate. So to give you an example, imagine I had information from 100 of us here, and amongst the 100, the amount you ate could put you in the top 25%. Or you could eat few fruits and you hardly ate vegetables. That would put you in the bottom 25% of the class. And so using the information about their fruits and vegetable intake, we put the participants into lowest quartile, second quartile, third quartile, and the highest quartile. The higher the quartile, the more fruits and vegetables they ate. And then, as explained in the analysis, it was very important that we accounted for all the other differences they had in addition to just the difference in the fruits and vegetables. Finally, I'm sure all of you are excited to know the result. We first looked at the absolute amount of fruits and vegetables in grams per day. So I didn't worry about whether all the fruits came from a few types or from many types. Just going by the absolute grams of fruits and vegetables, we looked at how people in the different quartiles had different likelihood of failing the test or having cognitive impairment. So again, the lower the risk, the lower the likelihood of having cognitive impairment. So we use quartile 1, people in the lowest intake as the reference group. They were given the risk of 1. We can see here that quartile 2, quartile 3, and quartile 4 all had risk that was lower than 1. In other words, they had lower risk of cognitive impairment than the group that ate the least amount. The first graph on the top is for total fruits and vegetables. People who were in the second quartile, the likelihood of cognitive impairment went down to 0.9 or was reduced by 10%. In quartiles 3 and 4, the likelihood further went down by 17 to 18%. It was 0.82 and 0.83. The middle graph was limited only to fruits. Again, we saw that people who had more fruits in quartile 2, 3, and 4 had likelihood of cognitive impairment below 1, below the people who ate the least amount of fruits. Finally, we looked at the bottom graph, which focused only on vegetables. This looked even more convincing than the result from the fruits, showing clearly that the more vegetables they ate, the lower the likelihood of having cognitive decline or failing the test that we used. So this suggests that as people ate more fruits or vegetables in the midlife, the risk of cognitive impairment in late life was reduced. And this was stronger for vegetables than for fruits. We then looked at the variety of vegetables and fruits. You might say at this point, if I ate more variety, wouldn't I eat more grams per day? So it was very important that when we looked at variety, we also controlled or adjusted for the actual absolute amount. so that we could truly look at variety and not the other things. So remembering that we had 39 types of fruits and vegetables, 14 fruits, 25 vegetables, we could actually have a score for each participant depending on how many of the fruits and the vegetables they ate frequently enough. And so using this score, we were able to look at the influence of variety on the risk of cognitive impairment. So let's look at the top graph. Again, quartile 1 were the people who had the smallest variety range. They only ate a few types of fruits, always eating the same type of vegetables. They were the ones in the lowest 25% in variety score, and they were the reference group. You can look at quartile 2, 3, and 4, and you would see very clearly that their likelihood of cognitive impairment were all below 1, meaning that their risk was reduced. And in quartile 4, it was reduced by an impressive 24%. The risk was down to 0.76. The top graph was for fruits and vegetables score combined. The second graph looked at the 14 fruits, and the bottom graph looked at the 25 types of vegetables. Again, we could see quite convincingly that the bigger the variety in fruits and vegetables, the lower the risk, especially in the variety of fruits. So we then put all the people that we examined, the 17,000 people, into 4 groups according to their variety score and according to the absolute amount they ate. So if you eat very little and you always eat the same few types of vegetables and fruits, you are probably in the lowest 25% for variety and for quantity, and you will be the reference group. First group, lower quantity, lower variety. But if you only ate a few types of fruits and vegetables, but you ate quite a lot every day, you will be in the lower variety but higher quantity group. The third group were those who ate a whole range of fruits and vegetables, but really didn't eat much every day. They were the higher variety but lower quantity. And finally, people with a higher variety and higher quantity were those who ate fruits and vegetables quite frequently and also from a wide range of fruits and vegetable choices. So with this, in the 4 groups, we then looked at, compared to the people who had the lower variety and quantity, the risk in the other 3 groups. As you would expect, the best group, the group with the lowest likelihood of cognitive impairment, were the group who not only ate a lot, i.e. higher quantity, but who also ate from the wider range of fruits and vegetables, i.e. higher variety. And this was the same for the first table, total fruits and vegetables. It was the same for fruit intake, and it was the same for vegetable intake. The risk was reduced significantly in that group compared to their counterparts who ate little and from a small range. Finally, we looked at how the amount of fruit and vegetables would influence the likelihood of cognitive impairment. The graph on the left showed the influence coming from fruits, and the graph on the right, the influence coming from vegetable. So you can see from the graph on the left that as the participants ate more fruits with higher fruit intake, the risk or the likelihood of cognitive impairment did come down, but then it seemed to then go up again, suggesting that while eating fruit could reduce the risk, there was a limit to how much you could eat to have reduced risk. And this seemed to be about 300 grams, which if you go by a serving of fruits being about 18 grams, it would seem that the benefit of fruits was maximum only to 3 to 4 servings of fruits a day. And there was really no benefit or reduced risk beyond 4 servings of fruits a day, suggesting that it doesn't mean the more fruits you ate, the better the risk, but it was limited to a range of about 3 to 4 servings a day. However, the graph on the right showed that it was different for vegetables. For vegetables, the risk of cognitive impairment just kept declining, just kept decreasing with more and more vegetables. So it seems to suggest that you could just go on and enjoy as much as vegetables as you like, because the more you ate, the lower the risk of cognitive impairment. Why is that so? The answer came when we looked at the different types of fruits. Remembering that we had put the fruits into 3 categories by the way they affected blood sugar level, we found that the benefits or the reduction in the likelihood of cognitive impairment was really only from the first 2 groups, the group with the low or the moderate glycemic index group. If we examine the intake of fruits with high glycemic index, like the pineapple and the watermelon, there was actually no reduction in the risk of cognitive impairment. This suggested that the benefit of fruits on cognitive impairment was really from the fruits that would not raise blood sugar quickly. And this was consistent with what we know about how excessive blood sugar would actually have bad effects on the function of the brain. And this suggests that people who ate a lot of fruits might actually be eating into the high glycemic index fruits as well. And therefore, we no longer see the benefit with people who ate many servings beyond 4 to 5 servings of fruits a day. They also made us suspect that because of the sugar content in fruits, there really is a limit and we should really eat fruits in moderation and not to be excessive on fruits. When we came to vegetables, we also found that perhaps there was also more benefit coming from specific types of vegetables, like the light green vegetables, which had more vitamins and folate, and also from the yellow vegetables, which included carrots and corn. Finally, we also saw benefit, reduced risk of cognitive impairment with the intake of mushrooms. And this was very consistent with studies that have already been done in Japan and previous studies in Singapore, showing that participants who ate more mushrooms had better cognitive function. So let me conclude for all of us. From our study involving about 17,000 Chinese, by studying their diet in midlife in their 50s and studying their cognitive function when they were in their 70s, we found that the participants who had more fruits and vegetable intake, the quantity as well as the variety, had lower risk of having cognitive impairment in older age. We found that the effects of fruits and vegetables were independent. And we found that even when they ate a big quantity, the variety score had independent benefit in reducing this risk, suggesting that it was not enough just to eat a certain amount that was big enough. It was also important to have a variety of fruits and vegetables. Finally, we showed that it was better to eat fruits with lower glycemic index, fruits that would not increase blood sugar that quickly after consuming. For vegetables, it's beneficial to add legumes, the gourds, the light green vegetables, the yellow-orange vegetables, and the mushrooms into the diet. And with vegetables, we did not seem to see any detrimental effect with higher intake, suggesting that you could just really go all out and enjoy as much vegetables as you like. So the message is an apple a day enough? Well, I hope I've convinced you that if you just eat an apple and you eat it every day, it may actually not be enough to keep the doctor away. Instead, eat a variety of fruits and vegetables to maintain cognitive health in aging. Thank you.
Thank you, Woon Puay, for that very interesting sharing that you just gave us. Can I just ask you, are you surprised by the findings? And of course, you have published more than 400 over studies looking at different aspects of diet, lifestyle, and aging outcomes. So as you embark on this study, of course, you wouldn't know what you would find, but were you surprised by the findings?
Okay, given the benefits of fruits and vegetables that have shown up in reducing the risk of cancers, cardiovascular diseases, and even metabolic diseases like diabetes, musculoskeletal diseases like hip fracture, am I surprised that fruits and vegetables could also prevent decline in cognition in aging? No, I'm not. But what I was surprised to find was that it wasn't just the amount that we ate,
Hmm.
the variety score was also important. And this was our first paper amongst our many papers on fruits and vegetables, where we decided that instead of just looking at grams per day, eating enough, we also looked at variety. And the
Yep.
second surprising finding was that when it came to fruits, there was really a clear finding that fruits which could raise blood sugar more quickly after we have eaten them may not actually be beneficial and may actually have some risk on cognitive impairment.
I think it's well known amongst the general public as well as the scientific community, fruits and vegetables, having more is good. But your study, you look at the variety of fruits and vegetables. Look at these graphs here. It's so interesting that the total fruits and vegetable, the variety in the third and fourth quartile, you would actually have reduced risk of up to 25%. And you also mentioned so combination of fruits and vegetable
Combination.
variety,
Yes.
higher
Yes.
variety, higher quantity, eating more
Has,
and more variety, you actually have
yes.
significant reduction of almost 23%. Wow, that's so powerful. And you also mentioned earlier, your study also found that fruit intake, while it's good, there's a limit to its benefits as you increase your intake. And that
Mm.
limit, you suggested that it seemed to be around 300, 400 gram per day. Beyond that, the risk reduction is not there anymore. And you put that to the differences in the glycemic index of the
Mm.
different fruits as well as the common suspicion that many of us have on the significant role of high sugar intake in our diet on many aspects of our health, including
Yes.
right now that you have found in cognitive decline. And can I ask you, does this study reinforce the role of vegetables for longevity and to lower the risk of chronic diseases? You have done so many studies. We had many discussions prior to this, talk about many different things. And the one thing that we share is our initial amazement, and right now, no longer being surprised by continuing
Yeah.
finding new studies that reinforce the role of vegetables. What do you say about that?
While there were no surprises, I would say that this was an important study because this represented a finding from an Asian population
Mm,
from local diets. First of all, thank you, Dr. Chan. You've summarized the findings so well, so clearly for our audience. And, many dietary patterns that have shown to improve health and reduce the risk of chronic diseases have featured the importance of having sufficient fruits and vegetables in the
yep.
diet. And most of these dietary intake patterns were derived from Western diets. And we had to use that and try to apply to our local diet and then to study its benefits. So while it is good that we found the same thing, that a diet which had large component or emphasis on eating more fruits and vegetables could reduce the risk of chronic diseases, our studies were important in showing that our local or the Asian way of eating our fruits and vegetables in terms of cooking and in terms of the variety
Mm,
was just as good as the Western way of eating their salad and
yep.
eating their berries. So we were very happy to see that amongst the fruits and vegetables we looked at, we saw the benefit from Asian fruits and vegetables. And so this study really reinforces the message that you have given, and now we have evidence that you do not have to worry that, hey, these studies doesn't mean I should eat my vegetable the salad way. How about my mushrooms? How about my bitter gourd and my fu gua
Yep.
that I do stir fry? So this, I think, our study not only reinforced that this is universal, but that it would apply to our Asian way of eating our fruits and vegetables that we are more comfortable with.
That's so powerful because in my course of my work, as you know, I do a lot of training
Mm,
and coaching of patients in the area of dietary modification
yes.
to help them better control their diabetes, to help them lower their risk of a recurrence of their heart disease. And often I need to give them the assurance that Asian vegetables cooked the Asian ways are just as powerful as what they typically think of healthy vegetables to be, which is generally salads. Salads are good. Right? Salads are great. But if you don't take to salads for whatever reason, I will still do my best to encourage them to go and explore vegetables cooked in many different ways. The Chinese cook vegetables in a different way from the Indians, from the Malays. We in Singapore, we are multicultural, multi-ethnic society here. And we have such a great variety in not just the types of vegetable, but also the way they are cooked. So I'm so glad that your study has given that reinforcement, that assurance to
Mm,
people, hey, go and explore, learn to eat salads. That's good. But even if you don't, continue to go and increase not just the quantity, but also the variety of the vegetables that they take. I want to also ask you, from your study, although you studied specifically cognitive impairment and not
mm.
dementia, but would it be fair to say that increasing the quantity and variety of fruits and vegetables can help us lower the risk of dementia?
Oh, yes, yes. Even though technically I studied cognitive impairment or cognitive decline as the outcome, and although I definitely defined my participants by the score that they had in the test that I used, cognitive impairment is a spectrum. And dementia is the severe form of cognitive impairment where the decline is severe enough to affect daily functioning, daily life. And so dementia is the tip of the iceberg for cognitive decline. It has been estimated in some studies that 10% of the population with cognitive decline progresses to dementia every year. So the reducing cognitive decline is definitely reducing the ultimate risk of dementia. In fact, the instrument that we use to measure cognitive function is the instrument that is most commonly used by doctors to screen for dementia in
Dementia.
their clinics.
And absolutely, because as healthcare systems improve, medical technology advances,
Mm,
longevity in many countries and many communities are increasing. But we should
Yes.
not just focus on longevity. We should also
Mm.
focus on healthy longevity, which you are an expert in. You are a researcher. You are a professor in healthy longevity translational research program. So would I be right to say one of the most important takeaway from this study would be that if they want to lower their risk of cognitive decline and dementia, eat more fruits and vegetables, not just in terms of quantity, but also variety.
Yes, yes, that would be the takeaway, not just for the viewers, but it's a reminder for myself to try new fruits and vegetables. I remember going for one of the talks that you have given for the general public, and I so enjoyed different types of vegetables that I didn't even know existed. So eating fruits and vegetables does not equate a boring diet. I think, Dr. Chan, this is where I could be telling the patients when they walk out of the clinic, they don't have to think that this is a bitter pill that they have heard today. And that, I must say, you are an expert to be able to teach that it is
Yep.
actually an exciting way to now relook at their diet. I've always said that whatever I find beneficial or harmful in diet, it is not meant to be like taking a pill a day. Food, meals bring people together. We enjoy food together. And so it is important, therefore, that we also promote the eating of healthy fruits and vegetables in a way that adds to the enjoyment of life.
It's interesting that you say that because actually I'm in the midst of finishing up an online course that I'm doing called The 7 Keys to Unlocking the Power of Food as Medicine. And one of the
Oh,
keys
wow.
is to learn how to enjoy it.
Yes.
Because if you do not enjoy the food, if you look at food as some kind of pill, medicinal foods, I think the mindset is wrong. If the mindset is
Mm,
wrong, the enjoyment is not going to be there. When the enjoyment is not going to be there, it's not going to be sustainable. So certainly, food has a great potential, tremendous power to be powerful medicine for many chronic diseases, as many of your studies has found, including this
mm,
very one that we are discussing today on cognitive
mm,
impairment in later years of life. But
mm,
food as medicine, the power can only be unleashed if it just become a part of a lifestyle seamlessly that we
mm,
enjoy. And one of the most difficult thing that I found amongst my patients, amongst people that I teach and conduct training for in the community, in companies, in organizations, is that their variety of vegetables are always so very limited. I will count the number of vegetables that they have, the type of vegetables that they would eat, not just on a daily basis, but on a weekly, monthly basis. The number of vegetables, variety is so limited. And I had to actually very painstakingly train my patients, train my participants
mm,
to slowly explore new variety of
mm,
vegetables, cooked in different
mm,
ways. If there's one thing that
mm.
people who want to lower their risk of cognitive decline and dementia, what is the one thing that you recommend that they do?
Well, I recommend that they eat more vegetables and fruits in terms of quantity and also in variety.